Hi, Tianji. How are you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
Thank you so much for your time, for coming.
Of course. Thank you for having me. I'm very excited.
Thank you. Can you please tell us a little bit about your background, where you grew up, or which city, which country?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
My name is Tianji, or you can say however you want. I always say that. I'll get into that later. But I'm from San Pedro Sula, Honduras, and I am half Chinese and half Honduran, right down the middle.
Okay. Where did you grow up? Actually, you're from Honduras,
Yeah.
but you spend a good amount of childhood there?
Oh, yeah. I didn't come here till 2021.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I'm
But
an
you,
international student.
but you sound very American. So 2021, that was like 3 years ago, right?
Yeah.
And do you mind if I ask you how old were you then? 18?
Yeah, I think I was
Okay.
18.
So you've spent 18 years in Honduras,
Honduras.
and you must speak Spanish fluently, right?
I do. Fun fact about that actually, the first language I spoke was Chinese,
Mm.
and then Spanish, and then English. But now it's like the other way around. My English is the best, and then Spanish, and then Chinese is the worst.
Wow. 3 years in America can make that happen, right?
Yeah.
So who is Chinese in your family?
My dad was Chinese.
Okay.
He was from this place called Harbin in China, and it's like North China.
Have you been to China?
I have not. I really
No.
want to go.
Okay. So how did your dad end up in Honduras?
So my dad went to a really good university in China.
Mm.
He studied architecture and civil engineering, and then he actually got invited by the Honduran government to build a stadium.
We built a stadium and never left.
Yeah, I think it's still one of the biggest stadiums in Honduras or something like
Wow,
that.
wonderful. And he met your mother in Honduras, right?
Yes, he did.
Okay. And does your mother speak English or Chinese?
This is always the question.
Sorry.
Everybody's always wondering. So when they met, my mom spoke kind of like maybe a couple words in English, but mostly Spanish. And then my dad knew Chinese, English, and then a little bit of Spanish. And then somehow they made it work.
But your mother speaks, oh, sorry, father speaks Spanish, I believe now, right? Does he?
He forgot it. Oh, my dad passed
Yeah.
away
Oh, I'm
recently.
so sorry.
Don't worry about it.
Sorry.
But his Spanish was always a little iffy. It was never great.
Okay. But they made it work.
Yeah. Over
Right.
time, my mom actually now understands a little bit of Chinese. She can't
Right.
speak it, but
Right.
she gets it.
So what do you think? How do you identify yourself? Do you feel like living in America for 3 years? You feel more American now, or you are still some part Chinese?
I so it's interesting because my dad always taught me math, and I'm a stats major, so I use math all the time. But there's little things such as like I can only multiply in Chinese in my head. If I want to multiply in Spanish, I have to like translate it. I have to translate the numbers. Or like sometimes like I know 10 digits of pi, but only in Chinese. I have to like translate them. And so in terms of education, I feel like I got all my rigor and like my like resilience from my dad. So that's why it's very Asian of me.
Mm-hmm.
But then I feel like my kind of like confidence and my approach to just like daily life is very Hispanic.
Mm-hmm.
I always want to say hi to people on the street, and then someone recently told me that Americans don't usually do that. And I'm like, I always want to talk to people. I don't know, I'm very excited. I am definitely a people's person.
Mm-hmm.
If anything, I'm looking into getting a master's in public relations
Mm-hmm.
because I want that more of like a client facing position.
Mm-hmm. What's your major now?
I'm double majoring in statistics and quantitative economics and econometrics, and I
Wow,
have a minor in Chinese language.
that's a very, very, maybe it might sound racist, very, very Asian.
No, for sure.
Most Indians, also do that, like, oh,
Yeah.
math, science, STEM. Well, that's good. So, but after this, you want to go for a PR, right?
Yeah. I'm
So
looking into it. I'm not sure yet.
you can combine both of your
Yeah, for sure. I still want to
aspects.
do like data analytics,
Mhm.
but I definitely want to have more of like a talking to people job.
Mhm. So, does living in America feel like you found your people, or do you long for Honduras, your home?
I Ever since coming to America, I feel like I've discovered so many things about myself that I didn't know.
Mhm.
I thought I was super Honduran, and if anything, when I lived in Honduras, it was kind of a problem because I felt like I wasn't Chinese enough because there's not that many Chinese people over there, of course. But then after I came here, I noticed that I gravitate more towards like people who were born and raised in America than immigrants. When I hang out with other Hispanic people, just something just doesn't feel like it clicks right. So I don't know what part of like my upbringing like created that today, but I just feel like I kind of like fit in more with like Americans in general. I don't know.
What is that about? Is it because they let you be, and your individuality is not, challenged, or they don't judge you, or they just let you what you want to do, right? Is that what it is, or?
I think it's also most Hispanic, or at least like South American and Central American countries tend to be religious and they tend to have more traditional views. And I felt like I never really shared those views growing up. And I didn't know that other people didn't as well. So when I came here and I met other people who also didn't think that way, it was kind of like, wow, I feel seen for the first time.
You can find religious people if you want to, but you can
Yeah,
also
you can find
have
anybody here.
anybody here, right? That's what America is
The
good,
melting
right?
pot for sure.
Like, is there anything that also like bothers you about America? Like, there's something that bothers or you miss about home, like food or any cultural aspects?
I I'm gonna sound kind of negative in this way, but not in a huge part. No.
No.
I go home maybe like once a year, and I mostly miss the relationships, my friends. But I feel like I found great Honduran food here. I found other great Honduran people here, and I feel like if anything, I crave meeting new people, more people that I haven't seen and haven't met, haven't interacted with before.
So this fits your personality perfectly,
Yeah,
right?
for sure.
So if you can long for your food and you can get your food, right?
Yeah,
No problem. You can find your people, and in Honduras, it's not all that far. You can fly there, right?
yeah.
um,
I always said I had never used a dishwasher until I came to America, and I
really?
was like, that is
Okay.
it's so easy. Just put them in.
All right. What you don't have to spend an hour, like
Yeah,
rubbing and like smearing with soap and washing, and you
yeah,
just stick it in, turn the button
and it's
on.
done.
um, if you got a chance, like suppose you finish your PR degree, if you do that, and you got a like great job, like which pays just as much money as you would here back in Honduras, would you go?
No,
Oh wow, nice.
no, definitely for sure
Okay,
not. When everybody asks me, I'm like, I want to stay here.
let's stay.
I think Honduras still has a lot of growing to do,
Mhm.
and I think that until that I am completely sure and like secure in myself,
Mhm.
I don't want to go back there because I feel like it would stop my growth more than it would help it.
Very interesting. How would it stop your growth? In what way?
Ever since I came to America,
Mhm.
I've my roommate in freshman year was the first Vietnamese person I ever met. And I can't imagine having to go back and like there's 200 countries in the world and not getting to meet anyone from there, not getting to know of any of these cultures, not getting to try any of these new foods. And Honduras just has, well, I guess it's also a benefit in some way, but like the Hispanic community is so tight. I feel like people
In
really,
Honduras.
yes, really value that like relationship between families and between communities in which people like to support each other. But I feel like I value more the ability to branch out and like go out on your own and like find new things for yourself.
So you think um, America gives you an opportunity to meet different kinds of people, like not just Hispanic people, people from Venezuela or Mexico, but also people from Vietnam, China, right?
Yeah,
India, and so maybe you're trying to say it's more diverse than Honduras. Is that
for
right?
sure.
In food and people and all kinds, even languages,
Everything,
right?
yeah.
And what about the? I don't know. Can you pronounce the name of the city you grew up?
San Pedro Sula.
San Pedro Sula.
Yes.
All right. Is that hot like here?
I ever since I came here, I realized maybe it wasn't that hot,
Okay.
but I thought it was burning. We were an hour away from the beach,
Mhm.
and we were located in a valley.
Okay. So this weather is you find it good, right?
Yeah, for
Okay.
sure. It never gets this cool.
Mm.
I will say it's much more green. There's mountains. Meanwhile, Florida's so flat. You
Flat.
can look away and you see
Right.
for like miles and miles.
But Honduras is more green than here. But
Yes,
this is
for
also
sure.
green though, right? It's
Yeah,
greener.
yeah.
Very nice. Would your mother ever want to come here?
My mother actually lives around half of the year here with my
Oh, she
sister.
does. Okay.
Oh, my sister lives 40 minutes away.
Oh, so you
Yeah,
have some family, right?
I do.
So even though your sister is here, but you still like only been in the country for 3 years, right?
Yeah.
Was she here before you?
She's 15 years older than me,
15
so
years
it's
old.
quite a
Okay,
gap.
much older. Okay. Oh, very interesting. What else? I don't know. I'm having a block for questions. I don't know what to ask next. We can also edit it out, okay?
Yeah,
You
for
don't have
sure.
to worry about it.
Oh, about my name earlier
Yeah, yeah.
too.
Tianji.
Um, Lee is my first last name, and then
Okay,
Bueso is my second last
okay.
name.
And which one is what? Like, which is it? Like some
Lee
half?
is Chinese and
Chan-
Bueso is Honduran.
Okay, okay. And Tianji is just Tianji. Is-
Well, my dad named me Tianji, and in Chinese it's technically Tianyi.
Mhm,
But then I realized that when I went to school, when you read it out in Spanish, it has a Y, so people
okay,
always said Tianji.
okay.
And I just picked it up and I call myself Tianji, but I never really decided how to call it myself
Is Y G in?
in Spanish.
All right. Okay. Oh, sorry, I didn't know. Tianji makes sense. So when you came, was there any kind of shock, culture shock when you first came? Were you like, as soon as you landed, like, yeah, this is where I want to be all my life. I'm here now.
It's so big, I
Right.
guess is the only word I can think of.
Hmm.
But you can do basically anything
Right.
here. The other day I went somewhere and I made a rug. It feels so like affluent and so
You made it.
I made it.
Okay.
I made it myself.
Wow.
It was just a class on how to make rugs.
So you can just walk in and they teach you how to do it. You
make a
can do
rug.
it, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
I know it feels like such a luxury that you
Right.
can just spend your time and your money doing anything. You don't
Right,
have to
right.
worry about like your basic
Right.
needs.
Tell me more about Honduras. Do people, like, I'm from India, of course. I mean, people value jobs like doctors, engineers, right, and or big administrative officers in government.
Sure.
And anything like any kind of menial jobs is not. I mean, you can do it, but it's not very highly respectable. Is it the same in Honduras? Like, people would like only value you or respect you if you are a doctor or engineer. How does that work there?
Well, Honduras is still very underdeveloped.
Okay.
I want to say I think it's like 60% of the country lives in absolute poverty, like $1 a day
Oh, wow.
situation. So I think they haven't gotten to the point where they can create an opinion on whether a lawyer is a better job than a regular job because maybe they've never met a lawyer before in their lives.
Oh, wow.
Especially my mom is from a very, very small village.
Mm.
It's like 30 minutes away from the closest like shopping center.
Mm.
And whenever I visit, you can just see how these people have never left this village and they probably never plan to.
Mm.
And they just do such like minimal tasks. They have a garden in their backyard. They have cattle in their backyard.
Mm.
And it's just something that, if anything, to them, being affluent or being successful is having more than a certain amount of cows. You know what I mean? And so, and I think that's most of Honduras. And I come from such a privileged point. I can't even like start to comprehend what the average life must be for someone living in Honduras. So from my perspective, I grew up thinking, oh, my dad is so successful because we get to like stay at home, we get to have a nice house. But it never really clicked how like privileged I was and how successful he actually was until I went to those places where it's like a 1-bedroom house and there's 10 people living in it.
So obviously you had a much more affluent life than most other Hondurans, right?
1,000%.
1,000%. So a lot of the things that you see can be luxurious, like, go walking into a place and make a rug for yourself, or like dishwasher. When there must be many things which also must not shock you because you already had a pretty decent life, right?
I say this all the time, but
Yeah.
I don't really mind when people jaywalk. I
Okay.
didn't think it was a problem.
Okay.
I didn't know you could get fined on it. I
Right.
was like, in Honduras, it's a thing people do all the time.
Mhm.
Or here, people don't really go outside of the lines when they're driving.
Right.
It's such like an orderly manner, and everybody just knows. They just follow it. And like accessibility here to things is so simple. You can go to a grocery store anywhere, and like everything feels like it's walking distance. Meanwhile, in Honduras, like I didn't walk my dog outside. People don't really go outside to do those kinds of things. Every single house is gated. Everybody has a giant wall around it. But here, like you can just see your neighbor, and it's not a threat. You're not scared. You're not in danger because there's other people walking outside.
So, does that ever make it boring that everything is so orderly?
For sure.
Yeah.
Every time I go to Honduras, it's like it feels like I'm taking a vacation. It's such a thrill.
Right.
Even driving here, I feel like I guess it feels kind of boring because I'm like everybody's
asleep,
going
right?
slow. Yeah,
Do you drive here?
I do.
Okay. Did you learn to drive here, or?
I actually learned to drive in Honduras with my chauffeur.
Okay.
And if you want to know a little bit of anything,
I want to.
chauffeurs in Honduras drive really intensely, to say the least.
Intense, as in like fast.
They drive really fast.
Mhm.
They cut off other people. And so
Mhm.
I always say that I feel like if I was ever in danger, I would be able to drive myself out of it.
Because you learned to drive in Honduras.
Yeah, for
Okay.
sure. Even I remember taking the driver's test,
Right.
and the instructor was like, "Do you have a driver's license already?" And I said, "I have one in Honduras." And he goes, "If you know how to drive there, you'll be able to drive here."
Yeah, but same thing could be said about India. Like if you know how to drive in Mumbai or Delhi, you can drive anywhere in the world. But I know a friend of mine who knows how to drive in Delhi and failed a test in New York City.
I'm here.
Yeah,
Oh,
and he drove for like 10 years because
huh.
he's so used to driving badly
Yeah.
that when you have to follow rules, your brain cannot switch immediately, and he failed it. So he has to go and unlearn some of the habits.
Yeah, I heard an analogy once that some people come up with driving with the mentality of like, I can be a bad driver because everybody else is a safe
Right,
driver, but
right,
if everybody thinks this way, then everybody's a bad driver.
right, right. Also, yeah, America is very orderly, right? I mean, everything,
For sure.
everybody
It's so
follow
clean here too.
clean.
There's no dogs on the street.
All right. So that thought never leaves your head, right? Even if you're walking down the street, like,
Oh, for
wow,
sure.
you never get used to it being clean all the time, right?
For
And
sure.
you constantly remind you, when I go back home, I'll see dogs, on the street, or maybe
Yeah.
some kind of dirt.
Anything, people. We don't really have that many like sidewalks, or maybe the sidewalk is really narrow, but here the sidewalk is really
If the
thick.
sidewalk is there, people might be selling
Yeah.
stuff on it, right?
For sure.
Or sleeping maybe. Same here in India. So yeah,
Or even the bike lanes here. I'm like,
yeah, right.
you have designated lanes for bike. They're not safe, but they're there.
They're there. So your American experience is mostly in Tampa?
Yeah.
Okay.
I've visited many other places in the U.S. I've been to New York,
Mm.
California. I've been to Canada, but most of my time has been spent here.
Do you think New York City is also just as orderly and clean as it is here?
I hate New York.
For what
I
reason?
think that's a controversial opinion.
No, you
but
can't, because people who live here, they can find there are too many people in New York City,
Yeah.
right? And also sometimes stinks.
it would smell so
It's
bad.
not bad.
I'm from Honduras, and I still think it smells so bad. But more so, I feel like it's just such a fast-paced,
City.
bustling,
Yeah.
city. And where I grew up in Honduras, I always say it's really quiet at night, and
Mhm.
here you can always hear things in the night. You always hear ambulances or like
Yeah.
cars outside.
Do you think are there any struggles for international students in America? Do they struggle in some way? And I know you don't, but can they struggle in any way trying to fit in American culture, American classrooms, or the professor-student dynamic anywhere? Are there any gaps?
If anything, I think
Yeah.
the honors college does such a great job at
Right.
kind of easing
Right.
that struggle,
Mhm.
because it's such a small classroom number and
Mhm.
it's so interactive. But I'll definitely say that the first time I went into a lecture hall, I was not nearly as equipped, I felt like, as my peers.
Mhm.
I remember taking Calculus 1 and I had never taken it before, and then so many people already had, or they had at least like had some sort of preparedness for it.
Mhm.
Meanwhile, I was completely lost. I was sitting in the front seat and I was like, how am I still not understanding what's going on? So I feel like if anything, they come prepared with that standard of education, even as bad as it might be, that I just didn't have when I grew up.
But
And I
you,
went to like some of the best schools in Honduras, and I still feel like I had that gap, that lack behind.
but you're okay now, right? You've caught up.
Hopefully.
Right. Do you have any advice for any international student, because you've lived with a Vietnamese student, and you're friends with all kinds of people, and what should they know about going to school in America at 18, 19, if you have any advice?
Gosh. I think if I could go back and talk to myself back then,
Mm.
I think I would tell myself to not be as kind of like guarded. I think I came with a lot of preconceptions and ideas from the movies and from TV shows of how America was, or from like the last election, or all these ideas of what the average American person looks like. And it wasn't until I got here that I realized the average American person looks so different depending on where you are, who you talk to, what class you're in. Like all these people are just as American as each other. Like I used to think if someone has an accent, they're definitely an international person. Now I know people who grew up their entire lives here and have an accent, and I don't have an accent. And I'm like, why did I feel like I had to come with those like preconceived notions of like, well, it has to look like this certain kind of person. I have to make this kind of friend that will like show me around Tampa, and they'll know what to do. They'll be sure of themselves. But I think everybody else is also just coming in and trying to like find other people and like discover new things. So I feel like I would tell myself to just not be so strict on myself and really just be open to whatever comes in my way.